1 week season.
1 week season fam, La Familia. Welcome back. Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86 here, coming to you with our first episode of our Bestball Plus 2024 product. We are excited to be getting back in them streets. The NFL draft was last week. A lot of exciting stuff going on. This is our Monday podcast. We're a little bit behind on our week right now with just getting the product going after the draft last week and kicking things off. So this will be going live on Tuesday, but otherwise this will take the place of our Monday market report podcast that we did last year. And it will be in the format, a little bit different format. We're calling it Wake and Snake. So it will come to you Monday mornings, bright and early. You'll be able to turn it on, get ready for your week, and wake up with us. And basically, we're just going to do like a live draft. And as we're going through it, talk through all the recent trends in the market, various news, things like that. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in my esteemed colleague, Mr. Billy Gableman, aka StatATL. Welcome, Billy. How we doing?
Mike, I'm doing great, man. I feel like I'm going to have tie-dye shirts ready for the rest of the season for our podcast with that name.
Yeah, Wake and Snake. Yeah. I thought it would be a little catchy and, just a little different way to do things. And, I'm always looking, like when I'm getting ready in the morning or I have a drive in, like I'm always looking for content or something to listen to. And so hopefully this, fits that bill and people can get a little taste of what Bestball Plus is all about and how we think at 1 week season and kind of go through it. I'm going to get right into it. That draft that we were waiting for, it filled pretty quick. So this is, for those that don't know, we're going to do this week's draft. We're doing on Drafters. They launched their flagship tournament, their Drafters $1,000,003. This is the third year they've done it. So they launched it just a couple days ago, $2.5 million this year, and is the prize pool $500,000 to first place. This is the tournament I actually took 7th in last year. Spent most of the offseason talking about in our Bestball Plus product and, really pumping their site. Oh, look at that. Here I am. I'm up. All right. So I got the 12th pick. This is my first draft on Drafters, and this is the 12th pick is also the pick that I had on that 7th place team, Billy. So hopefully a sign of good things to come. I'm going to go with the chalk here. I'm just going to take Jahmyr Gibbs. And then let's see here. I think I'm just I haven't updated my rankings on here yet, so I'm just going through their ADPs. I'm going to go with Marvin Harrison. That way, that'll be a nice little segue. We can talk about the draft. It's perfect. I got the 12 picks, so we got all this time between picks here. So did you have any big, strong takeaways? Anyone from the draft that you were surprised by a pick or something that a guy you're really excited about?
Well, on the team that we just picked, I feel like you gotta love Marvin Harrison's potential upside being the number one wide receiver. But in terms of just general takeaways, being in Atlanta, it's kind of hard not to. Yeah, it's kind of hard not to be a little confused by that pick. I think in a vacuum, Michael Penix at 8 is, makes perfect sense. Except, you just went out and paid Kirk Cousins $100 million over 4 years. So what's our number 8 pick going to do? Sit on the bench for 3 or 4 years? That's just such a waste of draft capital, in my opinion. But, that's why you and I are armchair quarterbacks, and these guys make the big bucks to make the decisions.
Well, and I'm glad you said it. So 2 things. One, so I did some early best ball, pre-NFL draft. And Penix was going undrafted. And I was actually taking him. It's 20 rounds on drafters. We'll touch more on the format as we go, but so I was taking him in that like 19th or 20th round. Like nobody was drafting him. Like he was like ranked like 1100, and it just didn't make sense. I'm not a huge fan of him as a prospect, but I had been hearing like buzz of like second round or like potentially first round. It's like, well, this is probably going to see the field. So, to that end, kind of with what you said at the end of when you were talking is he's like, it's not our job, right, to make those decisions. So like, it's our job to figure out what to do with those decisions, figure out what teams are going to do. Not like, oh, I think this coach should throw the ball more. It's like, well, if he's not going to throw the ball more, what does that mean? And how do we play that? So I think that's like, to that end, like we're the armchair quarterback. I think sometimes people get too caught up in what they think should happen. And then they're just like, whether it's DFS, best ball, whatever, they're like frustrated they lost. It's like, well, that's how this works.
Yeah, I mean, JM is always talking about how he loves listening to press conferences because he basically says a lot of times, you get a lot of their philosophy. Like, I don't want to say coaches don't lie because we both know they do lie, but he gets a lot of his thinking of how they're going to approach, not how we as DFS players think they should approach, but what's actually going to happen. If he's saying we're going to run the ball 30 times, okay, well, maybe we don't want to load up on 3 wide receivers from this team.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Got our pick coming up here. So I've got Gibbs, I've got Harrison. Once I have Gibbs, once I take that early running back, probably gonna push things off. Now, Travis Kelce, he just signed that big contract. You know what? I'm gonna go the route of giving us some talking points here. So I'm gonna go Kelce, and
I think you got to go another wide receiver here.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to double tap. Travis Kelce, Trey McBride. So 2 things with taking that. One, it's fun to talk about.
Sure.
But, I had Harrison, who I reached for slightly with that second round pick, the first turn. So getting McBride, just getting access to that Arizona offense. Basically, if Harrison's going to pay off that, if he's going to pay off that price tag being drafted that high, the Arizona offense is really, really going to be, they're going to
cheating.
Yeah, they're going to be overachieving. If he's playing at that alpha level, I think sometimes like my team that took 7th place last year on drafters had David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta all from the Lions. And it was a thing where it's like, the rising tide lifts all boats. So, and then, getting McBride and Kelce, obviously I'm not taking another tight end the rest of the way, but gives me a little bit of a, you can play both of them, right? Kelce in his good years, if he has another good year, which I'm really high on the Kansas City offense again, if he has a really good year, he's had years where he's the equivalent of the wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. So, getting him at that nice 2-round discount is nice.
Yeah, I like this approach you're taking. I think it's I think what gets lost a lot of times when people are doing drafts, just like when you're doing, a roster on any given Sunday for, weekly daily fantasy. As we're making this team or constructing a roster, we're not saying that we think that Arizona is going to far out exceed expectations for the whole year. And that's how we're drafting all 100 of our teams, or however many teams you may end up doing, Mike. It may be hundreds of teams. We're saying on this team, what is the scenario where this team could make the finals? And on this team, so far we've kind of made our bet that we're betting on Arizona offense. So, I think obviously it's way too early probably at this point for Kyler, but that's that's somebody in probably 2 or 3 rounds from now, or 4 rounds. I haven't done any draft on drafters. I haven't looked at any ADPs. We're both kind of, flying blind on this.
And I don't know how familiar you are with drafters even, but so there is no playoffs. It's straight 17 weeks. You just roll for 17 weeks and it's total points. So I'm just rolling with, trying to get the right combo.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up here. All right. So obviously I got 2 tight ends here, Gibbs and Harrison. So I'm probably thinking I'm going to, be put to a choice here, aren't I? I need wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
We just lost Marquise Brown.
I think we probably got to take at least one here.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going both. Yeah, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to roll with Ridley, and I'm going to come back with Hopkins. So I'm going to take both. So we've got 3. So again, team stacking, taking both Tennessee wide receivers there.
Mm-hmm.
Talented guys, veteran guys. But we talk, in our Best Ball Plus product, and I talked a lot about different drafter strategies and really digging into the weeds of, my thought process. My podcast is on Tuesday, my training session. Our boy Hilo, holy cow, this guy's got 27 drafts in.
Didn't it just open today?
Yeah. So, so anyways, over the course of the summer through written works and through the training sessions, drafters is really, I'd focus a lot on it. And just diving into the theories behind different things and why I build certain ways, and kind of the math behind it too. I have a finance background. So that's kind of how my mind works, is, trying to, solve equations and give myself constraints and give myself room for upside too. So yeah, while we're, now that I'm on that, we'll talk a little bit about drafters. So some really cool things I love about their interface. They have, you can see at the top here, next to each person's name, you can see there's a number. There's no number next to mine because it's my first draft. But for everybody else, those numbers next to their names, that is their the number, what number draft this is for them. So you can have up to 150 entries in a tournament. So like this guy, Bitcoin, he's on number 27 in just a couple days. So he's putting in work here. I really like their interface. There's a lot of other things I really like. See if I can step away for a second here. So like if I go to the My Teams and you go to your history, so you can see all my stuff. So this is like this is the on the left here, the big tournament from last year. So this is my team that took 7th place. So what's really cool is like I can go back. It's real easy to find. Like on DraftKings and Underdog, they kind of disappear after a while. But on here, you can find them very easily. And then not only that, but where are we at?
It's got to be. Are you able to see other teams in the
contest? Yeah, I can pull up. Oh, here it is. I can pull up the draft. So for mine or any other team in the contest, like I could pull up any draft from the contest and see how it played out. So I can see, like, go back and see my whole draft, how it played out here over on the right. So like, it's just really cool for, like, I'm working on all our stuff for this year, obviously. And just the interface, you're able to find so much information and just dig. And like, it's just like, I love it. Like, there's just so much about it that just is really plus EV. Look at this. I guess I got to do it. Kyler falling.
You have to.
Falling right in my lap, 10 spots after ADP. I just did the team previews for the NFC West today and talked up Arizona just as like, what they could potentially be, and how good they were last year. So I've got them. I think I'm gonna try to
They definitely played better than their record last year.
Yeah. They were so competitive. And then what do we got? We're in the 8th round. I'm gonna reach a little bit, take Curtis Samuel for the Bills. So all right, so now I've got let's see my roster.
Yeah, I mean we're so early in the best ball season. ADP is so fluid. It will really approach its, I don't want to say equilibrium, but it will really approach a much sharper view, obviously months from now. So, to me, I don't know how strict I would be on ADP. If there's a strategy you like for this team, I don't think it matters if you're reaching around for a guy.
Yeah,
ADPs that'll look so different in 3 months.
Yeah, these numbers are going to change so much. So I just took Curtis Samuel. So let's talk a little bit about Buffalo. What are your thoughts on their offseason so far? Obviously, they traded Diggs. They drafted Keon Coleman, first pick of the 2nd round. Curtis Samuel, obviously, they signed. They let Gabe Davis walk. So kind of some moving pieces. You have any thoughts on them?
I'm not sure I'm in love with the moves that they've made. I feel like there is potential for Josh Allen to take a step back. Like, I don't think that that's what the common talk is among the industry, but he's kind of losing his 2 best weapons and getting kind of unknown pieces. I feel like from what I've read in articles, Coleman is kind of the archetype receiver that he's struggled with. And if that's likely to be your number 2 or number 3 weapon, like I don't know that I love that. You're probably betting on a big year from Shakir, which it certainly could happen. But I think that if I had to make a bet on the Bills' offense, I would bet on slight regression. What about you? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, my thought is that their thought process is probably seeing, like, the Chiefs just let Tyreek leave and then they won 2 Super Bowls. And like, nobody's going to sit here and say like, oh, they're better off without Tyreek. But I'm guessing because they let some defensive players go too. So, I mean, just trying to think through like what was going through their minds. I'm guessing it's just like, well, we've got our own stud quarterback. We've got to cut somewhere. Like, we can probably get by with like okay weapons around him, and just like he's going to have to be Superman either way.
Well, that's kind of the bet they're making. Hey, we maybe have Travis Kelce light, at tight end, and we've got an all-star quarterback, and this is the approach we're going to take. Because if you look at the wide receivers for Kansas City, I mean, clearly, Rashee Rice in the second half of the season came on, but in general, it was kind of a a second string cast of not very fantasy relevant folks in general.
Coming up on my pick here, 2 more picks. There's an Arizona guy right at the top of my. Ooh, Jonathan Brooks just went. I was hoping he would fall. Rookie out of Texas.
Yeah, I figured that's what you were hoping for.
Yeah. Oh, and then Benson went. So those were my 2 guys I was hoping for. We'll have to get creative here. All right, so
since you have two, I don't know, maybe we're here at the 9-10 turn. Would you consider Jacksonville quarterback here with two wide receivers already?
I'm gonna reach a little bit, take Tyjae Spears.
Okay.
And then I'll take Tyler Lockett. So the Spears just what is his ADP? Not that it matters that much, like you said. So reached about a little over a round, but
we definitely had a need for a second running back on.
Yeah, really like Spears. He's a guy that was very high on. He was on my Spears and Lockett were both on my 7th place team last year. So it was actually frustrating because I would have taken Spears had a big game in week 18, and if he had posted that number in week 17, I would have taken like 3rd instead of 7th. Because that
was a financial difference there.
Yeah, Raheem Mostert and Alvin Mostert missed the game against the Ravens, and then Alvin Kamara, he left like in the first half against the Bucks in week 17. So my running back position was like real thin in that last week, trying to get up the leaderboard, and I think I took like an 8 at one of the positions. So yeah, and then the Spears, I was hoping he would come through, and he just did not. And then the next week he like went nuts. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. But yeah, I'm really high on his talent. And this Tennessee offense, I'm quietly like they're one of the teams that I think could be like sneaky good offensively. I think so. 2 things. Everyone has this like when teams are a certain way for a long time, it gets ingrained in us to like expect like this is how they play. But like Vrabel's gone, and they brought in like much more analytically inclined staff, front office, everything. And Will Levis is like he's like a talented, like he's got arm talent, and he's a gunslinger. He'll let it fly. So now you've got like Ridley and Hopkins, like those. I mean, those are 2 good receivers. Like they're not going to be like their prime guy, like themselves in their prime, but you've got those 2. Then you've got Treylon Burks, who's a talented, great athlete. Having him as your wide receiver 3, and then you've got Spears and Pollard in the backfield, and like I think that offense could be like real sneaky good. Like they're one of the teams that I'm like probably the highest on relative to what I'm seeing as far as ADPs and that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely like it when even if you just.
Uh-oh. Lost you for a second.
I was just saying, if you're just looking at just the names and you take a step back and forget that it's Tennessee, exactly, taking away those biases, you look at it and say this could be a strong offense,
right,
on paper for sure. So after our next 2 picks here, you have a lot more experience than I do on drafters, and again, first episode of the season. Why don't we talk to our listeners just a little bit about drafters in general? Hey, you pick 20 guys, even if it's just basic stuff. Here's how many we play at each position, because there may be a good number of OWS or future OWS subscribers that aren't as familiar with drafters as you.
Yeah, for sure. Let me get these picks first, and then we'll get into it. One more. Shaheed. All right, so good. A couple guys I want to talk about. So I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet, second-year running back, Seattle. I'm actually really excited for their offense. They have the former offensive coordinator from Washington University. So he's obviously can hit. It's going to be a much different approach. Pete Carroll's gone. It's going to be a more aggressive team. So getting him and Lockett, a couple guys from that Seattle team, and then I'm going to take Brandon Cooks. So Cooks will be my wide receiver 6. And like I said, I did the NFC team previews. Hilo takes the AFC. I did the NFC. And so just going through Dallas, like super interesting. Like their offseason has been like very interesting. And I'm actually like CeeDee Lamb is obviously he's like what do you go number 2? He's going to go top 3 in basically every draft this year. But like, I'm shocked that like Dak is going in like the 6th, 7th round. Like I think his ADP was like 85 prior to this. He was taken earlier in this one. That might rise a little bit, but like after their week 7 bye last year, he was the quarterback 1 from weeks 8 through 18. So it's like they clearly made that like shift, if you remember, to where they went really pass heavy. And it's just kind of like, it's one of those like head scratching things. I don't really understand how he's going in like the 7th or 8th round in most of these drafts with that kind of performance. And then they let Pollard walk. I know they signed Zeke this morning. So Monday Market Report, that's our, one of the news items, but like, clearly they're kind of telling us that they're just like going to ride that strategy and just like let it fly. So it's really interesting to me that Dak is having that low ADP, and then Cooks, like getting him in the 12th round. This is a guy who, like, you look at his game logs last year.
He's a spike week, guys, for sure.
Well, yeah, and even after that week 7 bye, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he had 8 of 12 games after their bye week where he scored double-digit PPR points, and he had that 130-plus point week. So, like, in the 12th round, getting like the third, like the 2B option, I guess. Like, I think it's like Lamb's the clear 1, and then Ferguson, then Cooks is slightly behind. Like they led the league in pass rate over expectation once they like kind of flipped the script after the bye. So like getting their 2nd or 3rd option in that offense in the 12th round just feels like stealing.
Yeah, and it does seem like, again, if you're just listening to what the coaches are telling us by the moves that they've made and the front office has made, it definitely seems from the surface that they're planning on passing a lot more, that running isn't going to be as much of the focus. If you watched any New England games last year, it really is the ghost of Zeke Elliott compared to, 5 years ago.
Yeah. So you brought it up before the drafters format. So it's 20 rounds. It is full PPR. So it's like DraftKings scoring, except there's no bonuses. So you don't get the 100-yard rushing and receiving, the 300-yard passing bonus. Like I said before, it's 17 weeks. Like, so there's just a leaderboard. It's everybody in the tournament, every team that's drafted. It's just one leaderboard throughout the whole thing. You're not like in pods where for 14 weeks you're with one pod and then you restart to 0 with a new 12 or 16 people. So it's just, it takes away a bit of the luck factor. It's like I'm about to be up here with a couple guys that I want to talk about, so this is good. Chuba went. So I'm going to take I'm really high on, I'm going to take Jaleel McLaughlin, and I'm going to take Kendre Miller as my running back 4, running back 5. So McLaughlin, I'm really high on him. Just a fun guy to watch. Like he's explosive, very quick, good with the ball in his hands. He's on Denver, and so Denver, they drafted Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick, and kind of a pick that surprised some people. And Sean Payton was just like super high on Nix and was comparing him to Drew Brees. And it was something like it's over 30% of Nix's pass attempts last year were behind the line of scrimmage. So like, I forget who I texted. It might have been in our group chat with like Hilo and JM and stuff. But I basically said like, I think like
This could be dump down city.
Jaleel McLaughlin, I texted him, I'm like, he might catch like 60, 70 passes this year. Because I think he's gonna have a bigger
role.
I just think he's gonna have a bigger role. You know, Samaje Perine, I'm not even sure is he still on the Hilo did the AFC. Yeah, so he's still on the Broncos, but like he turns 29. You know, McLaughlin, I just think his skill set is really intriguing. So to get him in a full PPR site, I like that. It's, you know, with the Knicks, like you just remember all those years with Kamara, Reggie Bush, Sproles, Mark Ingram, like all those dump offs that this Sean Payton loved to kind of be an extension of the running game, and it's just free points. And then you look at a guy like that, he can make big plays too. But the way this team's been built with like Gibbs as the stud, and then I'm kind of ham and egging it with these other running backs, hoping that like one or two hit. You know, these are all young guys too. These are all second-year backs. Gibbs, Spears, Charbonnet, McLaughlin, and Miller. They were all rookies last year. So kind of tells you where I like to attack the position with those young upside type guys. And Miller, kind of same deal. He came out of TCU and he had a torn MCL, I believe it was, when he finished up college. So his off season last year was a little shaky, and he never really got like fully into it. But like he's a very talented player. Jamal Williams, I think, is over the hill, and then you've got Kamara, who's like 29, and like I think Kamara and Miller are gonna like share that backfield. And, you know, there's upside for more there. So liked what I got there.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this stage of the draft, you know, I think you're hoping for upside. You know, you're hoping to draft a Puka Nacua.
Right. And, you know, drafting in this early window, like, you know, taking Kendre Miller right now, like that there's 4 months for Alvin Kamara to go to a nightclub. So lot of time for potential profit to rear its head for me. We'll see.
You know, I was listening to a Bestball podcast this morning, and they were talking about how on early drafts, like what we're doing right now, how you really want to like minimize variance. And again, I'm not going to talk about what this podcast was or who was talking. And again, I don't know what I don't know, but that just, to me, just seemed the complete opposite of what you actually want to do.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, so here's the deal is like, especially on drafters, I think, because and we'll get more in, I'll dive deeper into like the weeds and the math on this as we go, but like there is, oh, perfect. So I'm back up before I get into it. You know who I'm taking here, right?
Maybe.
Will Levis.
I figured as much.
Get a lot up. And
Mike, I'm the co-host today, buddy. You're picking, and we're doing. You know, I'm sure there'll be weeks where I'm drafted, so I'm going to let you go. And you know, if you have questions or suggestions, I'm here to give advice or at least talk about what I would consider. But again, I haven't done any best ball drafts this year, so it's kind of nice to just kind of get to see the big board and see how things go.
All right. So took Levis as my QB2, pairing him with, I've got Spears, Ridley, and Hopkins already. So just like a giant bet that like Tennessee's going to be good. And I don't think that, I'm not a guy, like I don't think you like have to stack your quarterback with with the rest of your team, especially on drafters. And I'll get into that in our Best Ball Plus, with our subscribers. I'll get into the theory behind that. But I do like Levis a lot, and he obviously fits here. Like if it works out, I'm not against it. But I got him after ADP here, and I'm obviously betting on Tennessee, like drastically outperforming. And then Demario Douglas, talented players. He popped a little bit last year, and obviously a big quarterback upgrade with Drake May coming in. So, I like those picks. But where was I? Was talking about drafters. Where was I before I picked? Wait.
We were talking Denver. We were talking Bo Nix. Who'd you take after Bo Nix?
Oh, I talked Miller, but I was talking about the drafters stuff. Oh well, it'll come back to me. So 20 rounds here. I don't know if I pulled up the payouts, but we've got, it's hard to see on this, but the prize distribution, 500,000 to first, 200,000 to second, 100,000 to third, pays out the top 28,000. The field is 186,000 if it fills this year, which is like, it's like double what last year was, which is wild.
And did it fill last year?
No, it was, I believe 110,000 was like if it filled, and I think it got to like 95 or something like that. So, it was only like 85, 90% filled, something like that.
So was that, I don't know the drafters rake, was that overlay or just?
Yeah, it was overlay for sure. Okay. Yeah. It was, well, I'll pull it up after I'm about to pick here again. So is Treylon Burks still there? Oh yeah, perfect. Let's go with Dortch and Burks. Just make like two big bets, Arizona and Tennessee. There we go. Dortch and Burks, there we go. So I've got 9 receivers now, just the 2 quarterbacks.
So obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously, but just with the draft capital that we put into tight end, I assume we're good with just 2 tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, it depends on every roster is different, and what makes sense. I wouldn't like totally rule it out. I guess it would depend on who else is on the board. We were talking about where I got off track before. The drafting early. You said you were listening to podcasts in the early draft window. So like on drafters, like I think on drafters it benefits you to be like super variant in those early windows, just because like if you can build a super team that like people can't draft later,
very advantageous, because it's not like it resets on week whatever in the playoffs.
Exactly.
You're not starting from scratch again.
Yeah. So like I think that like on Underdog or DraftKings, I think people can get like too cute trying to be like super variant early, but like your advantage isn't like really there, because like, you drafted so early that you're probably going to lose a couple guys just from attrition, that, all that extra time. And then like you're starting back over at 0. So even if your team outscores like all these other teams by 200 points in weeks 1 through 14, like it's 0-0 in week 15. Like you don't like you don't necessarily recognize or realize that edge that you think that you're kind of accumulating. And that's where, like, to shill our, Bestball Plus product, like I focus like on drafters. Like everything I do is like focused on it. I have strategies specific to the format, to the roster setup, the scoring. I've dug like hard deep into this, and like, not to toot my own horn, but like it paid off. Like 7th place, 30 grand last year. Like I spent the whole off season like basically focused on this contest. Also I maxed out on DraftKings because it's the same scoring for the most part. But like this is like my focus. And everywhere else, basically, they might do some things with drafters, but their focus is the big dog, the Bestball Mania 5, the DraftKings Million, the Week 17 is all that matters. So like you get like, there's just so much value from, we were talking about it a little bit before we were on stream, like from finding a niche and just like really diving in and digging in the weeds and just like being better or having a better understanding than like most of the people you're playing against. Like it's like the nobody wants to do it, but it's like the most clear-cut way to like separate yourself, I think.
Yeah, and all I'm hearing from this is I can't wait to, dive into Mike's Tuesday articles and strategy.
Yeah, I'm going to break down that 7th place team. So yeah, that'll be.
Is that this week's contents, or where's that down the line?
Yeah, that's basically when we get done like filming this. I'll go into that and see what we got. Let's see here. Who do I want? All right, so I've only got 5 running backs. Got to get at least one more. I'm going to go with Braylon Allen. Local kid, went to Fond du Lac High School in the same conference that I coach in. I coach basketball. So I knew he was good. I didn't know he was going to be, 17 years old and dominating the Big Ten like he ended up. But, all right. And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a shot here. Justin Fields.
I don't hate it at all.
Yeah, so adding another young running back, Braylon Allen, drafted in the 4th round to the Jets, just like a super physical, like kind of a really nice compliment to Breece Hall, really. Breece's skill set, but Braylon Allen's like 6'1", like 230 or 240, like he's a big dude. And then Fields, if I'm going to take a third quarterback there,
let's take one with upside if things work out.
Yeah, exactly. Like we obviously know. I was listening back to some of our Bestball Plus 2023, my training sessions and just different things that I talked about last year as I get ready for this year. It's like when I'm driving and stuff the last couple of weeks, been listening back. And so like 2 years ago, the top 4 scoring games from quarterbacks, 2 were Lamar Jackson and 2 were Justin Fields. Like they were the only guys. I think, well, Tua had the one game against Baltimore where he scored like 40, but otherwise it was just those guys that scored like over 40 points. So, when you put Fields on like I think back to like, so Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator now in Pittsburgh. And I don't want to go another hour talking about Arthur Smith, which we could. But I think back to like there were a lot of games where like Marcus Mariota, like he would put up some like real usable fantasy scores, like some good DFS weeks, like 26 to 29 points. And I think about like, well, if he's willing to use Marcus Mariota like that, like if Fields starts for a 4 to 6 week stretch, like he could put up some really, really big weeks. So yeah, and I'll talk about as we go through the season, and I'm doing a written work like focused on drafters too. just kind of breaking down like my thought processes. But like, I think he fits really well with that positional group where he can like actually add value and like make an impact on me on the leaderboard. So yeah, I think, for draft number 1, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I liked it. I think in general we could have done a lot worse for our first draft together.
Yeah, it'll be interesting where where some of these guys move to. Yeah, that's always really interesting to me. Like looking back at those earlier drafts, which that's the thing that also was really nice is like DraftKings and Underdog. Like once you get into the playoffs and stuff, right? Like the previous one, like it's hard to go back and find them. Like.
Mm-hmm.
To find like, but like I can go back on drafters. I can go back to like it keeps it all. So like I can go back to my history, and so this was for the drafters million, but like because the numbers are next to it, so I can see like, well, let's see. Let me find my first draft from last year, and we can compare it.
Yeah,
it finished 74,000 out of 85,000.
Probably not. Yeah, not one of your better results. But you know what? It's interesting because one of the things that we talk about on OWS is the reflection as part of the Discord, and some weeks it's a lot more active than others. But it seems like drafters really allows you to have more insight into going back and doing some of that self-reflection, looking back at your builds from last year, even looking back at, the first roster. I think one of the Mondays down the line, we should pull back up this draft and kind of see how it compares to what ADP is looking like 3 months from now. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So it's, let's see. So here I am. So I took Bijan Robinson, the 10th pick, and then Barkley in the 2nd round. Ended up with just 6 running backs. So took Lamar in the 3rd, and Lamar was actually on my team that finished really high.
Mm-hmm.
And some of these, I think I was like early on, I was toying with like different thought processes, and like so here I was trying like 2 early quarterbacks, seeing how that looked. I took Amari Cooper here in the 4th. On the team that took 7th, I the picks at the turn. So my 3-4 turn picks were Lamar and Mike Williams. And obviously Mike Williams, tore his ACL in week 2 or 3 or whatever. And like, I actually had Amari ranked the same or just ahead of Williams. So I don't know how or why I ended up with Williams on that roster, but like, I did the math on if I had taken Amari instead, and I shouldn't have done the math.
Yeah.
One of those I wish I didn't know situations. But anyways, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm smiling looking at Amari Cooper. I know you're not a big playoff best ball guy, but he was my highest drafted in playoff best ball this last year, just because I know that's not a contest we're talking about, but man, it was just like Cleveland from so early on was just so obvious. It was so likely they were going to be that 5 seed in the playoffs, and he wasn't getting drafted. He was getting drafted in like the 8th, 9th, 10th round. And it was just like, if you're building these teams where you're trying to draft guys from the 1 seeds who are going to be on bye the first playoff week, like you got to have guys that are going to score. And it's just like, why is Amari Cooper being drafted in like the 9th and 10th round? And then just a week before, as the market corrects, then he starts going in the 3rd and 4th round. But it's just,
right.
It was just like for weeks, it was like he was there. I did drafts. He basically got undrafted until I took him in the 9th or 10th round. And it's like, what are you people doing?
Here's
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Off topic.
No, you're good. Here's a better look at the prize structure. 500 to first. Can you see that on your screen?
Yeah, it's a little small, but I got it.
Yeah. But yeah, highly recommend to our listeners, highly recommend you check out Drafters. I
Mike,
think
do we have a promo code for it?
We do. Thank you. Good, perfect guess there, Billy. We have, if you go to Drafters, if it is your first time on Drafters depositing, if you use promo code OWS, you will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. If you have drafted on Drafters before, you can use code OWS Reload 20, and you'll get a 20% deposit match up to $100. So to get the $100 deposit match, you'd have to deposit $500. But still, or you deposit $100, get $20 back, or what have you. I'm not going to break down the whole table of 20%, but
math checks out.
I would recommend you guys check it out. Hopefully, you found this. The listeners found this educational and learned a little bit about Drafters, and I'm really excited for just the summer of drafting and digging into this whole process. And like for me as a DFS player, like doing all of this all summer, I find like helps me a lot, like be sharper when the season starts too. I think that my early season success from the last 3 years has been a lot higher. I've had some big scores early from 2014 through probably 2019. Like all of my scores would always come in weeks 5 through 12. But the last 3 years, I've had 3 or 4 big scores in the first 4 or 5 weeks. So I don't think that's I don't think that's an accident. I think it's been just a heavier focus on Bestball, Dynasty, and just when you're doing something more, you're going to be better at it, right?
That's how it works. So I'm excited to do these Monday streams, Monday pods with you, and excited to hopefully have an early season hit myself this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's sharpen the axe for September. Well, thanks for being with me. I know we're recording late Monday night, so thanks for staying up past midnight where you're at. So thanks for staying up with me. We'll touch base and get back on schedule with our Wake and Snake Monday mornings, either live or recorded, but we'll be back with you guys next week, Monday. Thank you for joining us. Billy, thank you for your time. I'm sure we'll be chatting soon. Best of luck to everybody, and we will see you in the draft room.